What's up, traders? Anthony Crudele here, and thank you for tuning in to the Futures Radio Show podcast. In today's episode, I'm excited to have Aaron Korbs, a full-time futures trader and the host of the Speculators podcast. As always, I emphasize trading isn't just about the markets, it's a journey of oneself. Challenging market conditions often bring to the surface invaluable insights about ourselves and our trading behaviors. In this episode, Aaron and we delve into strategies for navigating these tough markets, identifying personal issues that manifest in our trading, and breaking free from patterns that hinder our progress. Let's get started. Today's podcast is sponsored by FTSE Russell and TradeStation. FTSE Russell is the home of the Russell 2000 Index. Did you know that with an 81% share and $1.5 trillion in institutional assets benchmarked, the Russell 2000 is the top choice by far among institutional investors. Like all Russell US indexes, it's rules-based, transparent, and reliable, regularly updated with the latest IPOs and annually rebalanced. To learn more about FTSE Russell and their products, please go to FTSERussell.com. As a futures trader, you can leverage your portfolio even more thanks to TradeStation's reduced margin rates across popular futures products. Enjoy intraday rates as low as 10% on select U.S. index futures. TradeStation is also cutting margin rates in half for popular energy products, crude, heating oil, gasoline, and their associated minis. Open an account and access over 600 CME Group futures products and customize your trading strategies on a sophisticated platform built for advanced traders. Please go to tradestation.com/Anthony to learn more. Korbs, what's up, my brother? Welcome to the show.
Anthony Crude Oil Ellie, what's going on?
You know, it's so funny you start off with that because it's so funny to me how many people think that either I added that as like, not necessarily adding that to my name, but people are like, oh, Anthony Crude, because they say crude is from the futures in my name. I'm like, no, my name is actually Crudele. That's kind of, that's it, man. It just, I'm not a crude trader. I didn't add that in there. It's not like some fake name I got out there. That's actually my name. That's pretty funny.
It just goes so well. Since the last time we talked, I've actually been sitting on that one, waiting until we talk again so I could break it out.
It's come up more times than I even thought. And it's funny, until someone actually brought it up to me, I had never even myself even recognized that. I guess that's not good self-awareness, Korbs.
Yeah, you know, it's hard. It's hard to have self-awareness, isn't it?
So, you know, we're going to dive into really of the psychology of trading today. But I want to start off with, you've been traveling. You're primarily an E-mini S&P trader, which I love. And I want to start off just where you are right now, because I think it's pretty interesting to kind of start there.
I'm currently in Rishikesh, India, over here trying to crack open my third eye in the land of spirituality. So namaste.
But why there?
It was just next on the list. You've mentioned it. I've been traveling quite a bit, and going back a good year and a half ago, maybe going closer on 2 years now, I just decided to start traveling full time. So I'm on this sort of loop around the world, and I've traveled a lot before this, but this specific trip, I've been, if you can kind of follow the path, Dubai, Greece, Italy, Spain, Mexico, Colombia, Ecuador, Peru, Chile, Argentina, Brazil. I had to go back to the States for a wedding, and then I went back to Colombia, Madrid, Cape Town, Egypt, Jordan, back to United Emirates, and then India was next.
As a regular day trader, all these different time zones, that's why I brought up the E-mini S&P, because I am a creature of habit. It doesn't matter where I'm at. I've traveled quite a bit, not as much as you, I will tell you that, but I've been into a lot of different countries over my career. And anytime I've tried to day trade, I try to keep myself on that same schedule. I thought that was always important. But it was extremely difficult because you try to get in to that culture at that time. Like I remember when I spent some time in Japan, I was like, man, this is just, you're just, it's the end of your day. There's just so many different elements that you're dealing with and where you are psychologically at that point. How have you been able to deal with that?
Well, I'll tell you, it took some real doing. And to be able to keep this kind of a schedule that is incredibly chaotic, usually every month I'm dropping myself off into a different country where there's just a weird amount of chaos. Like you don't even know where you're getting a cup of coffee from. A lot of times you don't speak the language. And to be able to do this where you're not exhausted, and this doesn't have to be something that you need to come back and take a break from, but that you can just do continually. Yeah, it took some real doing. And so some of the things that have been very important to me are I know what I need to do every day as far as like my core things that make my life go. And then I just rearrange those into the schedule. And then wherever I'm at, I just adjust those so that it makes sense. So like to where I'm at now in India, it's late at night. And a lot of times I'll be getting in bed around 2 or 3 in the morning. And so I've just flipped stuff around. So all the things I would normally do early on, I'm just, doing those first. And then trading is kind of the last thing I do in the day. And then I just go to bed later and I wake up later. And this is a little bit of a difficult thing to adjust to, especially initially. Sleep's very important, but besides the sleep aspect, the rest of it is, just being very clear. Like I need to stress my body. I need to work on my mind. I need to, feed myself. Yeah, I need to do certain things. I want to have hobbies. I want to lean into the things that are happening around me. I need to work, and I live out of my calendar that way. And when you are very clear about what you need to get done, and you can kind of chunk those things, then it's just a matter of fitting it in where it makes sense.
I've become such a leaner on my calendar. I lean on it so much. And it's funny because the visual aspect of having a calendar and knowing when I set things up in a calendar, even when I'm going to post something or when I'm going to do, write my morning note or whatever it is, it allows me to be really focused in that moment, no matter what time it is, because I've set myself up for that moment. And hearing you talk about that, it's not something I've really thought about with myself, but I think for traders in general, putting together that structure, just laying it out there, I think it helps you connect in real time and be hyper focused. And also the opposite side of that, Corbs, allow you to still enjoy yourself and disconnect. Have you noticed that?
Oh, no, my goodness. If I do not have, like, there's a real misconception, and I used to believe this, that, if you structure everything up and you make everything too, you're going to take the fun out of life. Life's going to be boring. And it is the complete opposite. When you don't have a plan and you're not tight and together, then you have no freedom because you're always reactive. You're always chasing stuff around. And by being buckled down and by being clear, like you said, especially if you're in an entrepreneurial type endeavor like trading, where there's not a lot of structure put on you, it's on you to create that structure. And it is so freeing to plan out what you're doing and just start banging stuff out, as opposed to getting at points of your day and feeling lost, like what should I be doing right now? These are very horrible things. And to give you, a visual, because we talked about living out of your calendar, but when you can chunk everything out, this hard right is today, so everything's filled in already. And tomorrow I'll do my, end of day ritual today, and I'll fill up tomorrow. But when you kind of see the things that have to be done, and then you see those chunks of time that are free, the days just get away from you if you don't know what you're doing. And it creates an incredible amount of just peace, and anxiety and a lot of stuff starts coming up when you don't know what you're supposed to be doing, but you feel like you're behind on something. That's no way to go through life.
I want to shift gears. I want to talk about, not only are you traveling, so you are in different environments, you are, in different countries, different time zones. I want to shift that over to market conditions, because not all market conditions are created equal. And I've said this really almost to nauseum on X, where I've always will say all strategies work sometimes, nothing works all the time. I believe that that is one of the greatest skills that a trader can have and develop, is learning to participate when markets suit their style. I think it's extremely important to understand when a market condition is conducive to your trading. I think it's extremely important. And learning also when to step away or trade less in unfavorable conditions. I'm interested in your perspective on the frequency of trading. Even though you're changing all of these different, environments, and even in 2024, we've had, I think, several different market environments. Some may argue that, but I think we have had a few different changes. How are you going about being active on a day-to-day basis and adapting to these different market environments?
Yeah. So trading is something that's just very focal for me. So everything else kind of takes the back seat to this. I like to think about this is my Eden, and this is the one thing like I just can't mess up. The biblical story of Adam and Eve, they were in paradise. The only thing they had to do was just not mess it up. Don't eat of the tree. this is my paradise in the sense that everything I want in life is okay as long as I don't mess this up. And when it comes to frequency in trading, I am on the screens every day and I am looking to trade every single day. And the sweet science of what we have to do here, which is more of an art form than something we can structure. And this has to get away from just the analysis that tells you that this, oh, should be a good level or this should be something I should participate in. And we have to have that skill of trading, which is more of an art form and an understanding of this is not for me. This is for me, and I got to stay here and push the gas. And this is just not being favorable. And sometimes we don't know that right away. And sometimes we have to figure that out as the day is shaping up. But one thing that has helped me a lot is understanding that the market is going to do what the market's going to do. And we can't really determine when the market's going to be favorable and when it's not. And so when it is being favorable, enjoy it, push the gas. And when it's not being favorable, use that time to be off the screens. And I would used to be on the screens and just be fighting the market and be mad all day and be sitting and waiting and waiting and waiting for just something that wasn't coming. And you can kind of flip that script to where, yeah, today the market is giving me some extra time to where I can go do something else and enjoy something else. And kind of just reframing that to where it's not like something bad is happening because I'm not sitting here actively trading for hours. The market's not giving it to me. So let me then go enjoy something else in life.
One of the easiest things to say, one of the hardest things to do. I think that traders come in to this business with a very high work ethic, and they think by being there every day and by trading every day that is actually benefiting them. And in my personal opinion, it's not. Take yourself back a little bit. For a lot of these newer traders out there, for traders out there trying to get to a point of having that self-awareness, that self-control, what are some things that you do in order to allow yourself to get to the point to where you are choosing that laying on the gas and then ultimately laying off the gas when you should be?
I think it's very important that we always keep the focal point that we're trying to make money here. If you're not careful, you start doing crazy things where you're not really even trying to make money. You're just trying to be right. You're just trying to, feed into a lot of stuff. And I think it's very important as traders, we just have to be awake while we're trading. We can't be half asleep. We can't be unaware of what's going on. We got to just be very focused and very aware of what's happening in our trading. And of course, we have this drive where we're at some level have that entrepreneurial type of thing where we're in this environment where we eat what we kill. And it is important to put in that work and not, use this as an excuse to not be active in the market or not be doing the work that you need to be doing. But this, I don't know if this is something that somebody can figure out for you, because the times that I'm not going to be needing to push the gas might be a time where you need to be. And this is a very individual thing. And as a trader, it's on us to be our own people and to understand where our edges really are, what our natural aptitudes are, what our skill sets are. And the clearer and clearer you get about that, the more and more you're able to hone in on when that's right and when that's not. And this might just be something that has to come with experience, because I don't think there's something specific that I can just tell you that this is how you know, but it's something that in you have to know. And going back to maybe more of where that art form comes into this is there's not a set thing that I can tell you, but it is something that you start to get a handle on and you start to figure out. And you start to see that when the market is being favorable, it is just being favorable. And when it's not, it's just not. And if you are, in action like we're seeing today on the S&P, where we're kind of slowly grinding up with never a lot of conviction, where it's just obvious that we're going up, but we're just sort of drifting up and we're not giving anything back to the downside. This is a horrible environment for me. I want to counter trend. I want to be going outside, back in. And when we start seeing signs like we're not going up and it doesn't seem like we're liking these higher prices, but we just keep doing it, this is tough for me. And the reason I know that this is tough for me is because I've sat through this so many times. I know exactly how this movie ends. And you just got to be able to put in the time. You got to be with this long enough to see these different environments and to understand about yourself, who you are, what you do in this business, where your edge is, where you really make your money. And when the market's not giving it to you, it's just not giving it to you. You can't force it.
I wrote down a bunch of things hearing you talk about this, and I agree with all of them, really. And start off with time. It's really going to be your only teacher. I go back to who I am now versus who I was back when I first started. That amount of time I gave myself, that amount of experience, another word you used, is what helped me understand what environments are important to me. And I think acceptance of the feedback from the market. I think it's so important because as a trader, when it's a struggle for you. The market's giving you that feedback. You see it. You're over trading. You're doing things, right? And until you've been through that pain, these are all the things I wrote because I've been through them all, and I'm hearing you say the same things. Until you get to that point, you don't know when to push or when to lay off. But I guess what I want to talk about with you is how do you get to that point where it actually becomes a reality for you? Because I think, Korbs, what happens is that too many traders, they get pushed out of the business, not by the market, they get pushed out by themselves, forcing it through these tough times. What are some things that you could do that you did that help people psychologically prepare themselves for this longer journey?
Yeah, this is a really great point. And I think when we're talking about issues that we're facing in our trading, and we might look at something like, not being able to just accept that we need to be light on the day. If we're talking about struggle with FOMO, if we're talking about maybe like a very specific situation where you're in a trade, you're feeling good about the day, everything was good yesterday, maybe you ended the day a little green. You coming in today, you're in a trade, it goes against you, and something flips. You just start losing it. You start going on tilt, start trading like crazy. There's a lot of different situations that if we drill into them, they might seem disconnected, but they all have a very similar core thing. And from my experience of trading and from working with people, it seems to me that potentially the biggest issue that everybody has in their trading is developing very strong attachment to the outcome. And what ends up happening is if you're in this situation, like you need to lay off for the day, or the day's just not going your way, and you're just really forcing it, and you force it and you force it and you force it, and you just keep doing bad things, and you are very attached to the idea that you need a positive outcome and that you need a winning trade. And when you focus all of that attention on the P&L or the outcome, and you have that strong attachment to it, you end up getting very far away from what you want. When you want that green P&L, you just go farther and farther away from it until you blow out your eval, until you blow out your account, and you can't even trade anymore. And this interesting dynamic, if we think about it, like what exactly happened? Well, the market wasn't setting up, so I felt impatient. I started rushing stuff, or I took that loss and then I got mad. And if we think about why were you impatient? Why did you get mad? If we can drill these things down, we can come to this common idea that you are just very strongly attached to the outcome. And this isn't a dynamic that happens in trading. This is a dynamic that happens in life. It happens with people's health. It happens with people's relationships. If you're a guy and you're getting out there and, lions got to eat. But if you're going out there and trying to date somebody or meet a woman, and you're out in a social setting and you just lock onto somebody and you just start obsessing with the idea of getting this person home, you're going home alone. And the reason that this dynamic happens is because when you start getting obsessed with the outcome or with the goal, you lose sight of the process. You can't be obsessed about the goal and obsessed about the process at the same time. The process is what's going to get you to the goal. And so when you start obsessing about the goal, the process goes out the window, and then you just get farther and farther away from your goal. You start, in this situation, if you're in a bar trying to meet somebody, if you're just like obsessed with the wrong thing, the natural flow of just finding out if you have a connection with somebody and being charming and being all that goes out the window. And when you're trading and you start, focusing on that P&L, the idea of identifying a high quality entry or a high quality trade idea, or getting a precise entry, or managing an open position, or keeping your risk in check, these processes just completely go out the window. And having that ability to release the attachment is what has to happen. And it will happen one way or the other. If you have an insanely strong attachment to something like your P&L, the attachment will be released. Either you're going to do it, or the market's going to do it for you by forcing you out. And then when your account's gone, well, the attachment's released because now you can't focus and obsess about the P&L anymore because it's not even an option to keep trading. And this dynamic is very interesting. It's very important to identify that it's happening. And if you don't identify that it's happening, I think this is what causes a lot of traders to just feel like the markets are out to get them, or to feel like there's like this demonic force that just has them in their clutches, that every time they start to make a little bit of progress, they seem to just keep getting swept back. And they don't understand that they're getting caught up in this dynamic of just focusing and obsessing about the wrong thing, throwing the process out the window, and then getting farther and farther away from their goal. And to talk about things that are easier said than done, releasing attachment, how do you become unattached? This is quite literally the $1 million question. And as we move through the markets, this has to be the way we move, where we separate the P&L, we separate ourselves, and we just take all of that energy and all of that attention, all of that obsession, and we put that onto the process. But again, how do you do that? And it's very difficult. I think the best thing you can do if you want to be detached to the outcome is try to be born silver spoon cool, because if you got tons of money, that's a great way to just be released from the outcome. And if that's not an option for you, you got to be a little bit creative with it. And what I would really, really suggest is figuring out, okay, this is what you have available to you. Let's say you're in a position where you understand, like, I can apply for, this many, 3 evaluation accounts, and I can get these funded, I can get these turned on, and this is all I got. Okay, get 1, get 2, trade 1, keep 1 on the back burner, and just go off of that. So if something happens to this one, you're fine. You have something on the back burner. And this might not be like, well, Korbs, if I only have 1 evaluation account, like, these numbers don't really make sense. I'm not going to get to my goals, yada, yada, yada. But listen, recognize that it's extremely hard to come from the dirt when you have nothing and to try to make something from yourself. You have no leverage. And our good buddy Ray Dalio tells us, don't mistake things the way that they are for the way that you wish they were. And if you are in a position where you don't have any leverage, it is going to be hard, and you're going to have to do things a certain way. But the alternative is just stay crazy attached to the outcome and keep putting yourself in positions where this trade has to work out. And, good luck to you. I've seen that movie play out way too many times. I know exactly how it ends every time. And so you have to be creative with it. I don't know, anybody's situation, but whatever your situation is, think about, how can I put myself in a position where I can be detached? And take all of your eggs out of one basket is a really, really good way to start.
It's so true. So many traders have a wrong idea of what a positive outcome really is, because to them, a positive outcome is, I made money today, period. Doesn't matter, I made money, right? They never really look at a positive outcome in any other way besides P&L. And until I psychologically changed the way I looked at a positive outcome, the positive outcomes never ended up really coming to me in any real significant way. What do you think? Because I think this is part of the psychological trip you have to have here, right? You have to be able to, I think in some ways you have to, I don't want to say trick yourself, but there's things that I've put into place where I've forced myself to think differently. How do you, Korbs, help people look at a positive outcome in a different way? How do they shift that thought process from just P&L to something else that happened that may not be a positive win, but it's still a positive outcome?
Make no mistakes about it. The P&L does need to be one of the metrics that we track and one of the metrics that need to go up. But there is potentially a long period of time on your trading journey where that just can't be the metric, or you're just going to be depressed and you're going to give up. And I think something that's very important is to understand, what exactly is your process. If you don't have a process that you're going through, if you don't have a way of understanding, this is the way that I do analysis, this is how I understand the market and make sense of it, this is how I identify high quality trade ideas. And then this is the process of how those shape up, and this is how I get accurate entries. And when I'm in a trade, this is how I manage that open position, and these are my risk parameters. If you don't have that, then what are you focusing on? The only thing you really have to have as a metric is the P&L. But when you understand that this is a process, you can start grading how well you're doing just compared to that process. And you can shift the focus from, I want to make this much money today, to, I want to do this process really well. I want to be a good trader. I want to get insanely accurate entries. I want to stick to my risk parameters. Like, when that can become the thing you're focused on, you can walk away from a day. And this really works. When you separate the P&L and you really understand what a good day looks like in the markets, you can walk away from that with your head held high, feeling good, even if the P&L isn't what you want it to be, because you know that you did everything you're supposed to do. You know you did the right things. And I think if you don't have a process, which I think most traders really don't, you feel very lost and very confused when the P&L isn't going where you want it to go.
Yeah, I mean, I think about just recent days I've had where, first of all, your process and your preparation, if you don't believe in them 100% of the way, you're never going to have a positive outcome. Even on a good day, it wasn't enough. And you're always going to be searching for this. But I've learned that a positive outcome for me is good decision making, because good decision making is contagious for me. Bad decision making is contagious for me. I'm built like that. When I'm making good decisions, I feel good about it. I can feel it. When I'm making bad decisions, all I'm doing is I'm continuing to fight the bad things I'm doing, and I'm just searching for that one good decision to be made again. And positive outcomes, they have to be towards your preparation and your process, because if you believe in them, then you will start making good decisions. You will start feeling like you have positive outcomes. And I think that energy, it builds over time. Do you remember that turning point for you where, because I think we we're all at that point where we were only focused on P&L. Do you remember that turning point that you had where you went from focusing on a positive outcome only being P&L versus you walking away feeling like, look it, I feel great about today. Didn't go the way I wanted, but I feel really damn good about it.
Yeah. And it was a very real turning point of just realizing this is not working here. I either have to give this thing up or I got to figure this out. And this was a real like come to Jesus moment of understanding and just being real with myself of I don't have a good process in place. I really don't understand fully what my trade ideas are. I don't fully understand these different aspects. And there was a process where I just got alone and I started to think about what makes a good trader, what makes a good trade, and I just kept going down these routes of, okay, what makes a good trade? And I would just write down all of these things of, okay, coming to the point, a common thing here of a good trade has to have a good trade idea. Well, what makes a good trade idea? This has to be some type of repeatable type action that I've seen before and I know what to do. It gives me an edge. I understand what is most likely to happen next. If I don't have that, there's no trade idea here. And being clear about, other aspects of this, once I have a good trade idea, what makes a good entry, and fleshing that out and being able to understand what makes this, and just taking that piece by piece. And this for me is when I probably had my first real framework of what makes my process. And it was a breakthrough moment, and it's an important moment to come to because then you have something to compare it to and you understand whether or not you're doing well. And the P&L doesn't always reflect that. A lot of times it does, but it doesn't always.
I want to go to a recent video where I heard you say something that really stood out to me. And I think that really ties into everything that we're doing right now. And you said something along the lines of, we don't have very many trading issues, but we do have personal issues that show up in our trading. I believe in that statement as well. But what do you mean by that?
I heard somebody say this about business. You don't have a business problem, you have a personal problem that's showing up in your business. And it's very normal when you're sitting there and you're trading and you're not, getting the results that you want to just start jumping around to things. And oh, this isn't working anymore, so let me system hop, let me join a different community, let me, follow somebody else. And what ends up happening is you're still going with you with all these, everywhere that you go, you're still bringing you with you. And I think it's important to just realize how everything in your life is connected. It's not as clean as just like, well, this is my personal life, this is my work life, this is my da-da-da-da. These things are just you. And the way that you do one thing is the way that you do other things. And in trading, we have to be structured. We have to be process driven. We have to be competitive. We have to be these, certain amount of drive, certain things. And if in your personal life, you're disheveled and you're sloppy and you're kind of a mess in a bunch of areas, you can't expect to sit down at the screens and then just crush it. And it seems to me that a lot of trading forces us, we have to perform, and this is a performance sport. And to be a performer in this way, to get out there and to eat what you kill and to earn from the markets, there's no way around just being a good performer, a mental athlete of sorts. And I think it's a very powerful thing to do to start realizing where the deficiencies are in your trading, and then just realizing like, oh yeah, these are also my deficiencies in life. And the way that you fix them in your trading is by fixing them, like growing into that trader. And if you're somebody who's just extremely chaotic and your whole life is unstructured and you're very, a lot of chaos going on, okay, it's time to start being more structured and to start in your personal life getting things tidied up. If you, look around in your a simple example, if your house and your car is a mess, if everything around you is just disheveled, your trading business is going to be disheveled too. Like these things are not separated. And I think you could follow somebody around and see how they move through the world, and you could understand what their problems are in their trading business. But I think it's a beautiful thing when you understand this, and then you just start being a better person. Start fixing things in your life. Start being a better you, and then you're going to be a better trader. Like it will roll over.
It's so funny you say that. I think when you see people that are disorganized, it goes back to where we started today's conversation of when you put things up in front of you and you hold yourself accountable to things. It's as simple as, I made my dinner, then I cleaned the kitchen, then I ate my food, I cleaned up my dishes, I put them away. You get in this routine, this habit of consistency and just organization. It allows you to be more present in moments and you get really focused on them and you're not kind of sporadic and your mind is, all over the place. I think that there's so many things that tie from your personal life into trading. Can you give me some examples that you have seen of some common trading pitfalls and the personal challenges that may be linked to them?
Oh yeah, I think a big one is being able to stick to rules. And I think somebody in their life that doesn't have, like, bedtime would be a good thing. Our sleep is really important to us. And the basic things in life of just, let's say, getting good sleep, stressing our bodies and working out, eating clean, not doing things like drinking a bunch of alcohol or binging on things. Some of these just like extremely basic things are wildly difficult to do. They're so easy, but go out there and try to do these things perfectly for 30 days. Go out there and try to do them for 7 days in a row, and literally good luck to you. And top performing people in the world, athletes, the such, they have entire teams of people that just help them do the basics, because these things are very hard. But if you're a person that you don't even have it in you to go to bed and to wake up like with any kind of structure, do you think you're gonna be able to sit down with the screens and stick to your trading plan? I don't know. I can't stick to my rules. Well, of course you can't stick to your rules. There's not one area of life where you stick to structure unless you're at maybe like a job environment where somebody, puts that on you. And this is probably one of the biggest things is just being unstructured. And it's not anybody's particular fault because we're maybe we don't appreciate how much of an entrepreneurial type endeavor this is and how much freedom there is in trading. And that kind of freedom can be a little bit much. And it's on us to make sure that we create the structures that we need.
It's funny coming from the trading floor. I've met some guys that are just a complete mess and were unbelievable when they had to get into the pit and get focused to do it. And they had this amazing ability just to switch. I was not one of those people. When I didn't have structure in my life, I just really had a massive disconnect in my trading. So I could totally relate to what you're saying. And if you out there are thinking you're going to be that very small percentage of people, or if you are struggling, to me, it's one of the simplest things you can do is just put structure in your life. And I think it will tie to your trading. I love that, Korbs. I want to go to you on a personal level. Can you give me an example of a trading pitfall from earlier in your career that you were able to tie back to a personal issue that you had? And how did you fix it?
Coming into trading, I wasn't that young. I was in my early 20s, but I was a child on by a lot of different measurements. I was coming out of a very extreme religion, and I was just backwards to the world. And some of the major things for me that are trading, I think we'll all have our own journey with this way, but for me personally, one of the big things was I didn't know how to get good at something. Because the way I was upbringing, we didn't do sports, we were homeschooled, and there wasn't this thing of just understanding how do you acquire skill, how, the type of repetitions that have to go in, the type of starting with basics and being able to build on those. I actually had no real skill. I had some natural aptitudes and things that I might have leaned towards, but I didn't understand how to get good at something. And trading is a performance type sport. You can look at it like that. And it requires you, very similar to other professional sports that you want to do, to be able to get good and to be able to build skill. And this was something that I just didn't have. I didn't have it, skills in my own personal life. I didn't have skills at trading. And this was a hard thing for me just to be able to understand of doing the right things and being able to put in deliberate practice. These were some real issues. Another huge issue that I had when I first started, especially, was I have the aptitude, or I have the flaw that I got to keep in check of just building castles in the sky and dreaming. And I would get caught up in having these ideas about what I was going to be as a trader, and they were just somewhere out there as this is going to happen and just feeling really optimistic about it, but never having the real intention of this is what I'm going to do. These are the standards I'm going to have for myself. This is what my life is going to be about. And for me, there was some real points where I had to realize that this is what was going on, that I was just building these fantastical dreams, but I didn't really have the intention of having these things. And to make that switch of having vision, having, where you're going, but having some kind of a loose dream and having something that you really intend to have, these are worlds apart. And that was something, and again, all these things are life, trading, like they all go together very well. I think you mentioned it just as another one, and you can stop me because we could go for this for a long time. But making good decisions is another one. I don't think anywhere we really get taught how to make good decisions. And there was a point in my trading where I had to stop and think about, how do I make decisions? Like in life, in trading, how does information come into me? And then what is that process that I do to make a decision? And in life, if you don't have any kind of a process for how you're making good decisions and you're just kind of drifting around, how are you going to sit down at the screens and make good decisions? And trading forces us to make good decisions constantly. And anytime we start making bad decisions, the market will be right there to punish us.
When you really think about it, it's so overwhelming when you've been through it a little bit like us and you see how much it takes not only to build success from the ground up and have some success, then sustain it and then build from there. And then realize that a lot of the things that you learned, you have to relearn, and you're just constantly going through these patterns of adjustment. And just like there are patterns in the market, I've seen so many traders just repeat these same patterns, these Groundhog Day situations. We've all been there where we just keep making the same mistakes over and over again. It seems like even when you think you've gotten past it, they resurface again. Sometimes they resurface in just different ways that you thought you kind of fought off, but they didn't. What strategies or techniques do you use to recognize when you're falling into a repeatable pattern during a trading session?
This is, I wildly connect with what you're saying here. And there's been times in my trading where I just had to stop and think, like, am I just a freaking idiot? Like, why? Like, I know what's going on here. Why do I keep doing this? And yeah, I think this is extremely normal. And I think it's a certain attribute of intelligence of being able to make a mistake and then just course correct and not keep making that same mistake. And this has not been, maybe a gift of intelligence that I have, because this is something to keep falling into and falling into and falling into. And so, yeah, I think what's really important is just being clear about what exactly your issues are, because it's easy just to feel like everything's going off the rails and that everything's a mess. And it's usually not. There's usually a couple things, maybe one major thing with some other minor things that are really the source of all your frustrations. And you just want to figure out what those things actually are. Like, what are the things that are actually causing all of your disastrous days, all of your wiping away a bunch of good things, and then just trying to put in some real processes of how you're going to deal with that. And I think it's a certain level of awareness of being able to just be awake, not be drifting through your day and just keep letting the same things happen to you, but to just understand, like, this is happening again. I've been here. This is fine. I know what to do. Separate myself from the screens, walk away if you have to, use the Nike defense, because I think it's extremely difficult to have a shortcoming and then fix that. It's quite hard to do. And a lot of times it's just easier to avoid it. And if you can figure out what the thing that's causing you a lot of frustration is, especially early on, if you can just avoid those things, there's a dynamic when we're trying to grow our P&L where it's easy just to get focused in on the input. And I just want to find more setups, more signals, more things to do. But there's a very real output in our reserve tank of our P&L. And if you can do things to stop the output and stop the money flowing out, you have done the same thing of growing your P&L. It might not feel that way and it doesn't seem that way, but you have. And it might be nice to just recognize that, get very clear about what your issues are. And when those issues start coming up, just like avoid them and focus in on the things that you're better at. And then continually work at improving your shortcomings, but don't try to battle them straight on, because it's a weird dynamic in trading where we have to survive. And there are a lot of things that we have to deal with and figure out, and a lot of ups and downs that are going on here. And being able to survive is a real skill in this business.
Oh, no doubt. I've always said that trading is an in the moment business because we all know better after things happen. We say, I should have done this, or I knew as I was doing that. But I think the real fine line between those that make it and those that don't, maybe you want to call it between, traders that are just starting and maybe the super retail versus, the modern day retail to pro traders, that real fine line is in the moment. They understand where they really are and they make a better decision in that moment. I think that most traders, once they've had some experience, have the ability to understand it in the moment, but they don't have the discipline to actually make that shift or that change in that moment. I think that is really a defining character. I know that I went through this so much in my life in the moment, just fighting so many demons and continuing on a path I know was wrong. I know was unhealthy for me. I know it's, going to probably market's going to take from me, but yet I did it anyway because I was either taking my aggression out or there's all sorts of things that surface. How do you maintain that discipline, or what do you suggest to others to maintain that discipline in the moment?
I would say this: being disciplined is very difficult. And I think that it's maybe we get messed up with words a little bit, but the idea of trying to be disciplined and trying to be something that you're just not is very hard. And I think you can only typically do that for so long. And it's much better to be able to operate within something that makes sense for you. And a lot of times, a lot of the frustrations are coming from trying to work something, try to fit something that it's not you. It's not the thing that you should be doing. It's not the way that you should be navigating through the markets. And going back to what we said about being able to release that attachment, I think when you are, when you can really just be detached, a lot of these things, they fix themselves because you don't have these crazy aggressions and these crazy fighting type of things that happen when you truly are just released from the outcome. And it's maybe the best thing that we can do for these types of situations is to be released. But in the moment, having that discipline, you're not going to just find it in the moment, that's for sure. And I think you can only be disciplined for so long. So there's things you can probably do in your life that help you protect your mental energy, because we only get so much of this every day, so much of this mental energy. And once that's gone, your ability to be on guard or to be awake and to have the awareness of what's going on around you, it just dives off a cliff. And I think as traders, we should be very protective of our mental energy, do what we can to solve repeatable type of problems throughout the day. The way I like to think about this is our brain doesn't really understand what's a big problem and what's a little problem. It just knows it's solving problems. And that's what we're doing when we sit down to the screens. And there are so many problems in our day-to-day life that just keep happening. And a simple example would be food, because food is a problem that you have to solve multiple times a day, every single day. And if you can find a way to solve that problem so that when it's time to eat, you're not spending all this time thinking about what you're going to eat, thinking about where it's coming from, thinking about what you're doing. Like, these are the type of things that just burn mental energy. And we got to be able to save that mental energy for our trading, so that we can be disciplined, we can be aware, whatever you want to call it. And when you're mentally starting to get depleted, your guards are down and you're open for all kinds of wily things to happen.
That's so true, and that's so well said. And I think it takes us back full circle again. When you put up a calendar the way we started, and we talked about your routine and how you're handling different time zones, different market environments, structure, right? If you can detach from when you're actually trading to when you're not trading and actually separate yourself from those moments, because most people can't, right? They're still hanging on to their day. They've never totally detached. They go and they lift weights or they're doing something, but mentally they're not detached. They're still dwelling on it or they're thinking about it. And the only way I've learned that you ever fix anything in the moment is by finding really true balance and detachment from trading, because it calms you down. And in the moments, you just hopefully get better at at your execution of not only just trading, but just execution of your emotion, we'll call it.
Well, no, if I could just add to that, because this is the really important topic you just brought up. Of the market has a unique way of just taking everything you give it. It'll take all your money, it'll take all your energy, it'll take everything from you. And it's a horrible dynamic to get into, where you let the market start running the ship, where this is the only thing you really got going on. When this, when you have a bad day, it starts to, you take that into, and you're it's ruining your relationships. It's ruining, you can't be anywhere because you're, at some level still there on the screens. This has been a very hard thing for me. And of course, it's like an ongoing thing. There's just levels to it. It still happens to me as well. But I've made a lot of growth in this area where it used to be quite a bit worse. And hopefully I'll just keep getting better and better at this. But being in control of the time you're giving to the market, what you're giving to the market, the money you're giving to the market, you have to be the one to run that. Because if you don't, the market will just take everything from you. And trading can quickly become a very rough thing, where it should be very, it should be enjoyable, and it should be fulfilling, and it should be a nice addition to your life.
No doubt, the market will not only take your capital, it'll take your health if you allow it, and it'll keep taking.
No doubt.
Uh,
No
Very well
doubt.
said, Corbs. I want to end today on this last question. What's the number one lesson that you learned throughout your own trading journey that you believe would be the most valuable for aspiring traders to know?
I think maybe if I can answer this in two parts. One, just like on a practical sense, is there are some basic things about the market, like you just have to know. And it's very easy to get caught up in trading and be focusing on a lot of different things and totally miss the mark of what am I actually doing here? What's important? What's going to push the needle for me? And I think if you can develop basic skills around analysis, skills around entries, skills around managing open positions, skills around your risk management. Like, if you can hone in on those and get good at those things, then this will serve you very well. And I don't think it was ever really structured or outlined very well for me. I kind of had to find my way to understanding these things of what's important and what pushes the needle from, let's say, a tactical standpoint. And maybe just to flesh those out very quickly, if somebody's lost on like, what do I do with that? I think from an analysis perspective, the best way to look at the market is through a lens of understanding where value is and being able to at least make sense of what is happening. So you understand that the market is balancing out, you understand that the market is in some kind of price discovery mode, and you have a method for understanding what to do when the market is balancing and what to do when the market is in that price discovery mode. And as far as entries go, I think it's really important if you're a new trader or a struggling trader to focus in on pullbacks. There's very little that separates chasing a trade and just getting a sloppy bad entry from entering on momentum. And I think before you really understand that difference, it's very smart to focus in on entering on pullbacks once you have your trade idea set up. I think that's a very good place to start. And as far as managing open positions, I think it's really important for traders to focus on all-in, scaling out type of strategies. Scaling into trades, I don't think is something that you should be doing. I think that all in and all out is very difficult when it's that yes or no. And being able to enter a trade and scale out as the market's giving you profits. These are things that have made a big difference. And then for risk management, I think there's levels to this, but the first thing you should do is just focus in on a set amount based on your P&L or based on your total capital. A fixed percentage, you're risking the same amount every time. And this isn't the best thing to do for your trading long term, but to know when to hit the gas and when to be aggressive is a skill. And if you don't have that and you start pushing the gas at the wrong time, you're going to do a lot of damage. And so it's just not a good thing to do. But those kind of core elements, if you can start there and build those out for yourself, all of these things, when I really started to nail these things down and to understand what they were, to get clear about them and to start building skills of, how I'm timing these entries, how I'm understanding the price action, how I'm letting that set up, when do I know to pull the trigger? These things make a very impactful difference. And maybe one other thing on kind of a, maybe more of a mental side of this. I think if you're a trader, you should never be listening more than like 1 to 3 people ever. It's very easy just to have a lot of voices, and the person that you would want to listen to, one of the reasons you'd want to listen to them is because they found their own way in this. And even if there's a lot of people that have a lot of good things to say, the message is going to start getting mixed up on what exactly you should be doing and how you should be approaching things. And so by narrowing that focus of just 1 to 3 people that you listen to, no more than that, and understand that you have to be your own person. You are not, Anthony, you're not me, you're not anybody, you're you. And there are aptitudes that you have where somebody might tell you that, it's good to have a 40% win rate and to hold on to much longer winners and to have much smaller losses, and that makes sense and that works for them. And maybe that just does not jive with you at all. You are a person that should be in there focusing on a much higher win rate, focus on staying much shorter times into trades. And that's where you can really thrive. Like that's a place where you can find your home, and that's a real skill that you can be developing. And when you're trading, I think it's very easy to just want somebody to tell you something, want somebody to give you the answers. And this is not the environment for that. You can get help from people and you can cut down your learning curve and you can get a hand up, but there are no solutions of do this and then you just go out there and do it and then you get a great result. This is not the environment for this. This is an environment of a lot of uncertainty. And I think it's a huge issue that I fell into, that everybody falls into, of just trying to be somebody else. We can learn things and have similar skills or similar approaches, but there is something unique about you that you should be focusing on. And that's the thing that you're probably going to find your home in. And that's the thing that you can really start seeing some positive results with if you can figure that out for yourself.
We could have a whole show just on that last question there, Korbs. It's so funny, in today's world and how different it is from when I started on the trading floor. Is on the trading floor, we actually had questions for traders. In today's world, all these traders just want answers and they don't necessarily have questions. They just want results right away. And it's just the mindset is different. The speed of being able to become a trader, or all of the nonsense you see on social media, has driven people's minds, I think, in a bad place. And it's why so many traders struggle. I mean, it's just reality of it. And it's why their learning curve is actually longer versus them slowing things down. Their learning curve would be much shorter. But we can have a whole other discussion on that, Korbs. I'm so jealous of where you are right now. I'm really so happy for you with your success, traveling the world right now, living your best life, but you've earned it. You deserve it. And it was great to be on your podcast. I'm so glad to have you back on mine. The more I get to know you, the more I like you. You're a good dude. And where can people go to learn more about what it is that you're doing?
The best place is anything that I'm really involved with is on tradeact.com. I'm not very active anywhere else at the moment. Sort of on my own, thing. So don't send me an email. Don't reach out to me. I hate to say it like this, but I don't check emails. I don't respond to stuff, and I always feel so bad about it. And it's nothing to do with feeling like I'm too important or feeling like I'm too busy or anything like this. I just genuinely have an aversion to like checking messages, looking at stuff like that. I just don't like to do it. So I always feel bad. I know that there's plenty of messages that people have sent me over the years that just never get responded to. So please don't do that. I won't respond. But anything that I'm involved with as far as stuff that I'm putting out is, you can find me on YouTube. Not as active on there at the moment. And tradeact.com is where, I do anything.
Got it. Everybody go and check it out. He does a great job with his podcast. Hopefully you bring it back soon again. I'm sure you've got some things in the mix. Like I said, I'm envious of your travels right now, but enjoy it. Have a safe and great time. And keep at it, my brother. Great to have you.
Great to be here. Thanks a lot, Anthony.